Hey everybody, this is Final Flame Productions back with another Terminator video. Today I talk about more Terminator news, updates and stuff that's been going on. Not a whole lot, as you can imagine if you've been looking up yourself, but there is some new information that came out recently from one of the cast members of Terminator Dark Fate, Mackenzie Davis. She gave her thoughts on Terminator Dark Fate, and she gave her thoughts on there possibly being more Terminator movies, and her involvement in the Dark Fate sequel that was planned. So she was on a podcast, Mackenzie Davis, the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, and she was asked about Terminator Dark Fate. She was asked whether production of Terminator Dark Fate was a troubled one. She replied, now these quotes are kind of a little bit not exact, but you can listen to the podcast if you want the exact quotes. It's near the end of the podcast. Mackenzie Davis, she says, I wouldn't call it a troubled production. There was creative conflict, but there usually is if you give a shit about what you're doing. She says it was Terminator 6. She says nobody saw the last three. Doesn't mean what we made was bad. She felt the audience appetite was exhausted. How much you attribute that to three women in the lead, I don't know. I am a woman. She liked it. And she said she couldn't be like, nobody's seen it because they're sexist. She just felt that there was too many of sequels, and that was the reason it did badly. She was then asked about whether her character, spoiler, would come back in the Dark Fate sequel. And she hesitated to answer because she was wondering whether or not giving plot points about the sequel was still frowned upon, but the podcast host, told her that they're likely not going to make it. And she says that there would be another timeline in the Dark Fate sequel. There'd be no resurrection, but she did come from it. She came from the future, so she felt that there would be ways to have her back in the sequel, which wasn't a surprise because her character was probably one of the better parts of Dark Fate. So this kind of puts more fuel in the fire that we won't get another Terminator, especially in this timeline anyway. Especially this cast and this director. I think. Tim Miller, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I was deep in the weeds with Terminator news, but I believe Tim Miller, around the release of Dark Fate or after it was seen to be flopping, Tim Miller said that he wouldn't be making any more Terminator movies, which was a pretty big departure from him saying when they started out talking about Dark Fate that he seemed, although he didn't commit to making more Terminator movies, he did seem like he was really, really into it and that he would want to make more. But we all know that he complained, and Cameron has sort of suggested that there was a lot of creative differences and arguments, and it seemed like Tim Miller didn't really want to come back if there was going to be more Terminator movies. But Tim Miller sort of said because of the box office there won't be more Terminator movies. Mackenzie Davis has said on several times, including this one, that she doesn't really believe there should or will be more. And I mean, to compare it to Genesis, when Genesis came out, Genesis didn't do very well in America. I can't remember the right numbers offhand, but it didn't do well domestically in America for them. Genesis had a really big release in China, which kind of boosted the perception of that movie, and especially for the people, the big execs, the people that are in charge of greenlighting more sequels. And I remember after that, after Genesis, everything died down and people were pondering whether there would be more Terminator movies. I remember the producers of Genesis, which was David Ellison and Dana Goldberg, they were quizzed on it, and I'm not sure if I can find it. They were quizzed on it and whether there'd be more Terminator after Genesis, but they seemed fairly positive at that point, mainly due to the fact that Genesis worldwide box office was pretty healthy. but they didn't commit to saying what it would be, and we all found out then that Dark Fate was where the next sequel went. So with Dark Fate now, all the talk after Dark Fate's release has been really negative, has been sort of dispirited. There's nobody really talking about there actually been any hope for a sequel, and that leads me to believe that the box office for Dark Fate was terrible. Mackenzie Davis presumes that that's because people were fatigued with the Terminator franchise. I think there is a level of truth to that. It's interesting that she seems fairly bullish, and Tim Miller as well, that they made no mistakes in the script at all, that they felt that everything they did in that movie, whether it be killing John Connor, whether it be reducing Arnold to a really short cameo role, whether it be kind of making a mess of Sarah Connor, even a character like Mackenzie Davis that clearly is a talented actor. She clearly had an interesting role, but it wasn't really fleshed out. She wasn't really given much to work with. Then you have the whole CGI fest at the end of the movie. The last third of the movie was extremely CGI based, and kind of lost what they had built up in the for most of the first part, 2/3 of the movie. And what the good Terminator movies did was keep it practical, keep it feeling quite realistic and pretty violent. So they lost all of that, and Tim Miller, Mackenzie Davis. We haven't heard too much about other cast members. They don't take any ownership of that. They throw up the red flags, or the kind of the smoke screens and kind of decoys, I would label them as, when they bring up the sexism business and whether people didn't go to see it because they don't like going to see female-led movies. I don't know how that helps by her bringing that up. I know Mackenzie Davis saying that she doesn't believe that was the reason it failed. If she's trying to advocate for more movies like this, I think trying to suggest that the audience didn't go to see it because they wouldn't go to see a female-led movie anyway, even bringing that up is kind of lazy. I mean, we've all quoted the female-led movies that done really well, whether it be Scarlett Johansson and Lucy, whether it be some of the Resident Evil movies, whether it be some of the Tomb Raider movies did really well, even the Alien movies, Terminator, Judgment Day in the same franchise. Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton was a big part of that. It done really well. Atomic Blonde, I think, did fairly well. It's kind of a lazy thing, and that wasn't the problem with the movie. The problem with the movie is that I listed them all out. There's a lot of reasons that movie didn't do well. Audience exhaustion may have been a part of it, but I don't think it was the only part. And if that movie had been good, word of mouth would have got around, and it would have done a hell of a lot better than it ended up doing. So in terms of Terminator 7, there is no real news. I know there has been some kind of dodgy news being put out. I seen somebody, a friend sent me an article where Margot Robbie and John Cena, I believe, would be in a reboot. I think that was nonsense because I didn't see it anywhere else. Somebody else posted about James Cameron wanting to do a future war movie. I think that's pure nonsense as well. Because, James Cameron is an Avatar world. He clearly didn't give a crap about the Terminator Dark Fate, whatever part he had in that movie, and it clearly wasn't that big of a part that he had, because if he did have a big part in that movie, and in fairness, it's been suggested that he was a big part of the John Connor assassination, which, if he really felt that was a good idea, and he actually did spend enough time to actually think that out, and he thought it was a good idea, then, you wouldn't want him anywhere near another Terminator movie. I think if you're asking me, what do I think the Terminator franchise should do? That's not that interesting of a question because everybody has their opinion on it. What I think will happen, what I think is the most likely thing at the moment, is that for the next while, especially with the world at the moment where productions and movies and TV shows are getting pushed back and getting delayed and that sort of thing, there's definitely not going to be a clamor to make a Terminator movie in the next while, because I think things that are getting made are stuff that's really, really important, and they know it's going to be a surefire hit. For Terminator going forward, I mean, they're not going to make a sequel to Dark Fate. There's not going to be a sequel to Genesis. That, you know, you can strike those two things off as being fairly certain. I mean, Terminator Salvation has been ignored as well. Terminator 3, it's interesting they tried to suggest that Dark Fate would be the real Terminator 3. I knew straight away when they started to flag that probably wasn't going to happen unless Dark Fate was really, really good. So I think Terminator 1, 2, and 3 still feel like the real trilogy, and I suppose Salvation is quite liked. I think Genesis and Dark Fate have become the two odd one out kind of crazy dopey sequels. Now if you look back at a franchise that has way too many sequels, there's always a few that feel like the people that were making them had no idea where they were going and were sort of just trying all this crazy stuff. I think the first 4 Terminator movies feel like ones that at least have a small strand of a connection with each other. Genesis and Dark Fate just look like those kind of I know they're really big budget and have a lot of big stars back, but they do feel like straight to DVD kind of afterthought, forgetful movies that you don't really want to remember. So they're not going to bring any sequels of those. To reboot it again, just I think it's too soon. I think a TV show, and then a TV show seems kind of like it could fall to the wayside, like Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles. So they may not go that direction either. It may be a streaming service, a Netflix or a Amazon Prime type thing, a limited series, a short series with as big a production values as something like this would need. I think that seems like the way to go. I think they would be splitting between a future war movie and a modern day pre-Judgment Day timeline as well. I think that's sort of where it should go. But it's interesting to think about it. I mean, I'd like to have more concrete or more interesting news, but that's all we've got at the moment. What do you think about Mackenzie Davis's comments, and where do you think Terminator franchise is going, or is it going to go anywhere? Let me know.